In the world of justice, we expect those who uphold the law to do so with integrity and fairness, but sometimes that trust is shaken to its core. This story revolves around corrupt cops who face the court without a hint of remorse. It's a troubling glimpse into a system where those meant to protect us went down a dark path and when confronted showed no regret for their actions. Let's explore this disheartening tale of betrayal and the startling absence of remorse in the courtroom. Zack Wester. In the annals of law enforcement, the name Zack Wester will forever be etched as a stark reminder of the dark side that can lurk within the ranks of those entrusted with upholding justice. A former North Florida deputy, Wester's actions left an indelible mark on the lives of 33 innocent individuals, whose encounters with him would become harrowing tales of abuse of power and corruption. Zack Wester's descent into infamy began as he took on the mantle of a law enforcement officer in 2016, joining the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. Initially, he appeared as a dedicated patrol deputy with a penchant for making an unusually high number of drug-related arrests. However, beneath this facade, a sinister reality was unfolding. Wester's modus operandi involved stopping innocent drivers for minor infractions, only to subsequently arrest them on fabricated felony drug charges. These charges would turn out to be baseless, part of an elaborate scheme that saw him planting drugs on unsuspecting victims during routine traffic stops. The consequences of his actions were devastating, as more than 100 lives were disrupted, and numerous individuals found themselves in the grips of a justice system gone awry. The tipping point came in the summer of 2018, when prosecutors began to grow suspicious of Wester. Inconsistencies in his police reports and damning body camera footage exposed his deceit. One particularly incriminating video showed him holding a plastic baggie before searching a woman's vehicle, leading to her arrest for possession of methamphetamine. Wester's actions were uncovered during an internal investigation that revealed a cache of ready-to-plant drugs and paraphernalia stashed in the trunk of his patrol car. His arrest in 2019 marked the beginning of the end of his reign of corruption within the justice system. In a subsequent trial, Zack Wester faced the weight of his crimes and was found guilty on a multitude of charges, including racketeering, fabricating evidence, official misconduct, false imprisonment, and possession of controlled drugs and paraphernalia. He received a 12-year prison sentence, a testament to the severity of his actions and the breach of public trust he committed. The fallout from Wester's actions extended beyond the courtroom. For the 33 plaintiffs who brought federal lawsuits against him in the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, the scars of their encounters with him remain. Many lost jobs, spouses, homes, and even their children due to wrongful arrests. While a recent settlement offers some measure of justice, it cannot fully erase the trauma endured. Zack Wester's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of accountability within the law enforcement community and the devastating impact of corruption when those sworn to protect and serve veer down a treacherous path. His actions cast a shadow over the trust that citizens place in their protectors, leaving us to ponder how such a betrayal of duty could go unchecked for so long. Eric DeValconaire. Eric DeValconaire, a Kansas City police detective, found himself at the center of a landmark case that has reverberated through the corridors of justice and the community at large. In a trial that marked a significant milestone in Kansas City's history, DeValconaire was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, an armed criminal action in the fatal shooting of 26-year-old Cameron Lamb, a black man. This conviction not only carried legal consequences, but also sent a powerful message about accountability within law enforcement. The case unfolded in December 2019, when DeValconaire recklessly shot Cameron Lamb as Lamb was sitting in a pickup truck and backing into his own garage. The incident occurred following a high-speed police chase through a residential neighborhood, with DeValconaire and his partner, Sergeant Troy Schwalm, responding to the scene. Prosecutors argued that DeValconaire's actions were reckless, as he entered Lamb's property without a warrant, knocking down a makeshift fence and opening fire within seconds of encountering the pickup truck. In a surprising twist, DeValconaire waived his right to a jury trial, and the case was tried before Jackson County Circuit Court Judge J. Dale Youngs. The 4-day trial came to an end with Youngs delivering a verdict that found DeValconaire guilty on both counts he was charged with. Youngs ruled that Lamb had an expectation of privacy on his property and that the officers had no justification to enter the premises. DeValconaire's conviction marked a watershed moment as he became the first Kansas City law enforcement officer since 1941 to stand trial for the fatal shooting of a black man. Notably, the officer in the early earlier case had been acquitted. The trial and subsequent conviction drew national attention and highlighted the importance of impartiality and accountability in cases involving law enforcement. While the guilty verdict carries a minimum statutory punishment of 3 years for each conviction, DeValcanere remains free on bond, with his sentencing yet to be determined. The trial also served as a poignant reminder of the delicate balance between law enforcement and the communities they serve, shedding light on the need for transparency, fairness, and adherence to the law in all interactions between officers and citizens. In the wake of this momentous verdict, the case has left an indelible mark on the relationship between the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office and the Kansas City Police Department. It has also spurred discussions about the role of the criminal justice system in holding those entrusted with maintaining law and order accountable for their actions. As the legal proceedings continue with the possibility of appeals, the verdict has served as a catalyst for reflection and dialogue about the challenges and responsibilities that come with policing, particularly in communities seeking justice and fairness for all their residents. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, once hailed as a positive role model within the Baltimore Police Department, found himself at the center of one of the most shocking corruption scandals in Baltimore's history. His journey from being admired and respected by superiors to serving a prison sentence until January 2039 serves as a stark example of how power and privilege can lead to a devastating downfall. Jenkins played a central role in the notorious Gun Trace Task Force, GTTF, an elite unit initially created in response to a shift in policing strategy. The unit's original purpose was to tackle gun trafficking and focus on more sophisticated gun-related cases, but over time, it devolved into a shadowy group of plainclothes officers operating with little public scrutiny. Operating in the shadows allowed the GTTF to go rogue, engaging in a range of criminal activities, including robbing individuals they stopped on the streets, planting drugs and guns on innocent people, invading homes, and fraudulent overtime claims. This misconduct persisted even in the wake of public outcry over the death of Freddie Gray, highlighting the impunity with which the GTTF operated. The GTTF's reign of lawlessness came to an end when a suburban drug investigation inadvertently revealed one officer's links to a drug organization, prompting an FBI wiretap. This investigation ultimately led to the indictment and arrest of 8 GTTF members on federal charges, including robbery, extortion, overtime fraud, and drug trafficking. Despite years of lawsuits, complaints, and opportunities to expose their crimes, it was this suburban drug investigation that finally brought the corrupt officers to justice. Some members of the GTTF cooperated with the Justice Department and provided essential testimony against their fellow officers, resulting in convictions and significant prison sentences. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, the ringleader of the GTTF, stood out as a symbol of betrayal, abusing his position to commit heinous acts of misconduct. He was regarded as a skilled officer, but chose to engage in the worst possible behavior, including framing innocent individuals and participating in reckless car chases that resulted in innocent deaths. The GTTF's actions left a lasting scar on the relationship between the Baltimore Police Department and the city's residents, particularly communities of color. While the police department is now under federal oversight, the deep-seated problems and mistrust remain. The scandal prompted an external investigation into the Baltimore Police Department, revealing systemic failures in internal affairs and supervision. The emphasis on statistics and quantity over quality in policing contributed to a culture where officers believed the ends justified the means, leading to corruption and abuse of power. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins's story serves as a cautionary tale about the corrosive effects of unchecked power and a stark reminder of the ongoing challenges in reforming police departments and restoring trust within communities affected by such scandals. Michael Dautro. Former Edison police officer Michael Dautro's case stands as a striking example of a law enforcement officer who displayed no remorse as he faced sentencing for his crimes. Dautro was sentenced to 20 years in state prison for his involvement in setting fire to the home of a superior officer, Captain Mark Anderko, while Anderko and his family were inside asleep. Dautro's complete lack of remorse was evident during his sentencing. He scratched his neck and forehead and remained silent throughout the proceedings. He offered no apology to Captain Anderko's family, the witness he tampered with, or the other officers whose lives were adversely affected by their association with him. This case is particularly noteworthy because Dautro's crimes spanned a 5-year period, and he faced multiple charges, including attempted murder, arson, official misconduct, conspiracy to tamper with a witness, and conspiracy to retaliate. His sentencing came as a result of a plea agreement, which stipulated that he must serve 17 years before becoming eligible for parole. The charges against Dautro were initially announced by Middlesex County prosecutors prosecutor Andrew Carey in May 2013, and since then, efforts have been made to cleanse the Edison Police Department of corrupt officers. Doctorow's actions not only jeopardized public trust, but also led to the removal of other officers for their involvement in his offenses. Prosecutor Carey, along with Edison Police Chief Thomas Bryan, has worked to rebuild the department's professionalism and integrity. Bryan hired 53 new officers in 4 years and implemented safeguards to prevent similar misconduct in the future. This case marked a turning point for the Edison Police Department, and steps were taken to ensure a more transparent and accountable police force. In the courtroom, Doctorow's wife, Alicia, couldn't contain her outrage, calling him a manipulative monster. However, Doctorow's attorney, Robert Norton, noted that while he was not entirely satisfied with the plea bargain, he considered the case resolved. Doctorow's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of accountability and transparency within law enforcement agencies. His complete lack of remorse underscores the severity of his actions and the challenges that arise when addressing corruption within the police force. The case highlights the ongoing efforts to reform police departments and regain public trust in the face of such scandals. Lester Bonenblust. Lester Bonenblust, a former Miami police officer, found himself at the center of a shocking incident that unfolded at Jackson Memorial Hospital in May 2018. While on duty, Bonenblust physically assaulted a nurse, James Nicholson, in an altercation that was captured on hospital surveillance cameras. Incident occurred when Bonenblust demanded that his mentally troubled niece be readmitted to the hospital, despite medical staff determining that she did not meet the admission criteria. The surveillance footage paints a disturbing picture as it shows Bonenblust grabbing Nicholson by his shoulders, violently slamming him to the ground, and subsequently threatening him with arrest. Nicholson, a registered nurse who had dedicated his career to helping others, never expected to become a victim of a police officer's aggression while performing his duties. In the aftermath of the incident, Bonenblust faced swift repercussions. He was fired from the Miami Police Department, arrested, and later convicted. His criminal conviction resulted in a 45-day jail sentence, accompanied by 3 years of probation. However, the story does not end there. Nearly 4 years after the traumatic incident, James Nicholson decided to take further action by filing a civil lawsuit seeking damages in excess of $75,000. This lawsuit not only targets Bonenblust, but also names the city of Miami and former Miami Police Chief Jorge Colina as defendants. Nicholson alleges that the city's policies and procedures contributed to an environment in which officers felt they could engage in misconduct without facing consequences. Nicholson's decision to pursue a civil lawsuit underscores the ongoing challenges in addressing police misconduct and the pursuit of justice for victims. While Bonenblust faced criminal prosecution and a brief jail sentence, the civil lawsuit serves as another avenue for holding law enforcement officers accountable for their actions. It also shines a light on broader issues within police departments, including the need for greater accountability measures and cultural changes to prevent such incidents from happening in the first place. This case serves as a reminder of the critical importance of addressing misconduct within law enforcement agencies and the pursuit of justice on behalf of those who have been wronged by those entrusted to protect and serve the community. David Oliver. Former Brimfield Township Police Chief David Oliver faced criminal charges related to allegations of sexual harassment and misconduct during his tenure as the township's top law enforcement officer. The case involved various misdemeanor charges, and Oliver pleaded no contest to the following offenses: attempted theft in office, simple assault, unlawful restraint, and unauthorized use of a gun. In response to his plea, Portage County Common Pleas Judge Lori Pittman sentenced Oliver to 2 years of probation. Furthermore, as a result of his plea, Oliver was permanently barred from serving as a police officer in the state of Ohio. The case was prosecuted by the Ohio Attorney General's office, and it centered on allegations made by Officer Crystal Casterline, who had filed a lawsuit against Oliver. The lawsuit, which was pending in Stark County Common Pleas Court at the time, accused Oliver of sexually harassing her through inappropriate comments and unwanted physical contact. Casterline also alleged that Oliver retaliated against her by physically assaulting her and establishing arbitrary rules for her. The lawsuit sought compensatory and punitive damages, exceeding $25,000. It was a significant legal battle stemming from the troubling allegations against Oliver. David Oliver's abrupt resignation in 2014 marked the beginning of his legal troubles as he faced accusations of sexual harassment. Prior to these issues, he had gained national attention for his candid and often controversial social media posts. However, following the allegations, Oliver deactivated his popular Facebook account. Additionally, court records indicated stated that Oliver was accused of theft involving a sum of $1,304. This included $804 allegedly taken from an illegal silent auction and $500 that was supposed to be a charitable donation, but according to the records, was not used as intended. David Oliver's legal case involved allegations of sexual harassment and misconduct, leading to his resignation as police chief, criminal charges, and a lawsuit seeking damages. His plea resulted in probation and the permanent loss of his ability to serve as a police officer in Ohio. Charles Becker. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Charles Becker, a lieutenant in the New York City Police Department, became a name synonymous with crime, corruption, and ultimately, execution. His life story, particularly his involvement in the notorious Becker-Rosenthal case, stands as a gripping tale of scandal and intrigue in the heart of the city that never sleeps. Charles Becker's journey began in the quiet village of Callicoon Center, Sullivan County, New York, in 1870. Born to German-American immigrants, his upbringing offered little hint of the turbulent path he would later tread. At the age of 20, he ventured to New York City, where he found work as a bouncer at a German beer hall near the Bowery. In 1893, Becker took a fateful step by joining the New York City Police Department. Little did he know that this move would thrust him into the public eye and set the stage for a dramatic turn of events. Becker's early years in the force took an unexpected twist when he arrested Ruby Young, a known prostitute who was in the company of the famous writer Stephen Crane. This incident garnered significant attention, and Crane himself stepped up to defend Young at her hearing. Crane's influence swayed the court, leading to the dismissal of charges against Young. However, Young retaliated by filing charges of perjury against Becker. Feeling vulnerable, Becker rallied his colleagues, gathered evidence, and hired skilled defense counsel. The subsequent trial in October 1896 would see Becker acquitted, revealing the immense power wielded by those in uniform and the support he could rally from fellow officers. Throughout his career, Becker was involved in reform movements within the police force. He advocated for the introduction of the three-platoon system, which aimed to reduce the grueling hours of beat police officers. In 1906, he played a key role in investigating Police Inspector Max F. Schmidberger's alleged corruption, contributing to Schmidberger's subsequent prosecution. Becker's dedication to his work caught the eye of Deputy Police Commissioner Rhinelander Waldo, who, upon becoming the New York City Police Commissioner in 1911, appointed Becker to lead one of the city's anti-vice squads. As Becker climbed the ranks, allegations of corruption and extortion began to swirl. He was accused of using his position to extort vast sums of money from Manhattan's brothels and illegal gambling establishments in exchange for protection from police interference. A portion of these illicit proceeds found their way to politicians and fellow officers, with Tammany Hall's Big Tim Sullivan overseeing the area. The turning point in Becker's life came with the murder of Herman Rosenthal, a flamboyant Estonian immigrant who operated illegal casinos in the Tenderloin district. Rosenthal openly accused Becker of collecting a 20% share of his casino's earnings. In July 1912, Becker's name surfaced in investigations into extortion from Rosenthal's establishments. Tragedy struck when Rosenthal was murdered in the early hours of a July morning, just as he was scheduled to testify before a grand jury about police corruption. The killers, including Lefty Louie, Whitey Lewis, Dago Frank, and Gyp the Blood, made no effort to conceal their identities. Becker's life unraveled when he was arrested for first-degree murder in connection with Rosenthal's killing. His first conviction was overturned due to judicial bias and the lack of independent witnesses. However, in 1914, he was convicted again and sentenced to death, becoming the first New York City police officer to receive such a penalty. Throughout his ordeal, Becker maintained his innocence, contending that he had only ordered Rosenthal's removal from the city, not his murder. Nevertheless, on July 30th, 1915, Charles Becker met his end in Sing Sing's electric chair. The execution process, lasting 9 agonizing minutes, was described as one of the clumsiest in the prison's history. The legacy of Charles Becker's case remains contentious. Some argued that he was wrongly convicted, contending that he merely allowed the criminal underworld to eliminate Rosenthal to prevent him from exposing police corruption. Others maintain that Becker's active involvement in the murder was undeniable. The Becker-Rosenthal murder case continues to captivate historians, authors, and enthusiasts, offering a window into the corrupt and complex world of early 20th century New York City law enforcement. The story of Charles Becker serves as a cautionary tale of power, corruption, and the enduring allure of mystery in the annals of criminal history. Daniel Holtzclaw, Daniel Ken Holtzclaw, born on December 10, 1986, initially pursued a career in law enforcement, becoming a police officer in the United States. However, his story took a dark turn when he was convicted in December 2015 of a series of heinous sexual crimes while serving as an officer with the Oklahoma City Police Department. Holtzclaw's conviction centered around 18 counts of sexual abuse and assault involving 8 different women. Disturbingly, he was accused of abusing his position of authority by exploiting police databases to gather information on potential victims, which he used to coerce them into sexual acts. The charges against him included rape, sexual battery, forcible oral sodomy, and other sexual offenses. One of the most contentious aspects of Holtzclaw's case was the background of the victims and the defense's approach during the trial. The majority of the victims were African American women, many of whom had criminal records or were from impoverished backgrounds. The defense sought to challenge the credibility of these victims by highlighting their criminal histories during cross-examination. Some argued that Holtzclaw deliberately targeted these women due to their vulnerable circumstances. Holtzclaw pleaded not guilty to all charges and maintained his innocence throughout the trial. However, the evidence presented during the trial included DNA found on Holtzclaw's uniform trousers, matching that of one of the victims. The defense argued that this DNA transfer could have occurred innocently while he conducted searches or interactions with the women. Despite Holtzclaw's denial, he was convicted on 18 of the 36 charges he faced, including rape, sexual battery, indecent exposure, stalking, forcible oral sodomy, and burglary. The jury recommended a staggering 263-year prison sentence. The case of Daniel Holtzclaw garnered limited attention from mainstream media despite the gravity of the charges. It was primarily highlighted and brought to public consciousness by activists, including some associated with the Black Lives Matter movement. They pointed out that the case represented not only a shocking instance of sexual violence, but also underscored issues of race, gender, and police abuse of power. Holtzclaw's legal battle continued with an appeal, but on August 1, 2019, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals denied his appeal. The court upheld both his convictions and his lengthy prison sentence. Holtzclaw's defense later petitioned the Supreme Court of the United States, arguing that merging the 17 cases together was questionable. However, on March 9, 2020, the Supreme Court refused to hear the case. Holtzclaw's case received criticism for the lack of widespread media attention, especially in comparison to similar cases involving white victims. Some argued that the media's selective coverage highlighted broader issues of racial bias and discrimination in reporting on sexual violence cases. While the case of Daniel Holtzclaw ultimately led to his conviction and incarceration, it also prompted a national conversation about police brutality, sexual violence, and the vulnerabilities faced by marginalized communities. It serves as a stark reminder of the importance of accountability and justice within law enforcement agencies and the legal system. Roy Oliver. The case of Roy Oliver revolves around a heartbreaking incident that occurred in April 2017 when the former Balch Springs police officer fired multiple shots into a car, resulting in the tragic death of 15-year-old Jordan Edwards. On the first day of a civil trial held in the downtown Dallas Federal Courthouse, Vidal Allen, who was driving the car that fateful night, recounted the horrifying events. Jordan Edwards, a 15-year-old honor roll student and athlete, was in a car driven by Vidal Allen, then 16, along with 3 other teens. They were leaving a house party when Roy Oliver, a white police officer, fired 5 shots from his service rifle at their car. One of the bullets struck Jordan in the back of the head, killing him instantly. Roy Oliver was subsequently convicted of murder by a Dallas County jury and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. This landmark conviction marked the first time in 45 years that an on-duty police officer in Texas had been found guilty of murder. Now, a civil trial seeks to determine whether Roy Oliver used excessive or unreasonable force when he shot at the car, resulting in Jordan's death. The lawsuit, filed by Odell Edwards, the boy's father, in 2017, seeks unspecified monetary damages. During the trial, witnesses, including the teenagers who were in the car that night, recounted their experiences. Vidal Allen described how he witnessed his stepbrother, Jordan Edwards, being shot through the car's passenger window and then asked a police officer to pray for his brother as he lay dying. Photos presented during the trial showed the devastating aftermath of the shooting, with Jordan slumped over the car's center console, blood smeared across his face and clothes. Roy Oliver's defense attorney, William Kruger, argued that Oliver's actions were driven by his duty to protect his fellow officer, Tyler Gross. Kruger emphasized that it was a lose-lose scenario, and Oliver believed the car might hit Gross, leading to his decision to fire at the car. The case has garnered significant attention due to the tragic loss of a young life and the conviction of a police officer for murder. It also highlights broader issues related to police use of force, particularly against black individuals. Jordan Edwards, a black teenager, was shot and killed, bringing attention to concerns about racial bias and excessive use of force by law enforcement. As the civil trial unfolds, the jury will play a pivotal role in determining whether Roy Oliver's actions on that fateful night constituted excessive or unreasonable force, whether monetary damages should be awarded to Odell Edwards, Jordan's father. Joseph Mianowski. Joseph Mianowski, a former Chicago police officer, is infamous for being labeled the most corrupt cop ever prosecuted in Chicago. His story is a chilling tale of corruption, abuse of power, and a reign of terror in the criminal underworld. Here we delve into the details of Joseph Mianowski's criminal activities, his conviction, and his failed attempt to seek a reduced sentence under the First Step Act. In the late 1990s, Joseph Mianowski was not just a Chicago police officer, he was a drug lord's trusted enforcer. Mianowski believed that Juan Hernandez, known as Poochie, had stolen marijuana from a drug dealer working for him. This belief set off a chain of events that would expose his shocking corruption. To exact revenge on Juan Hernandez, Mianowski conspired with another police officer, homicide detective Reynaldo Guevara. Their intention was clear: get Poochie at any cost. Although discussions about their plan remained vague, it was evident that Mianowski had framed rivals in the past, and the Hernandez brothers were his new targets. Juan and Rosendo Hernandez were charged with a 1997 murder in Belmont Cragen, a crime they vehemently denied committing. The case was marred by allegations of misconduct, and Mianowski's involvement raised suspicions of a frame job. Mianowski's corruption extended far beyond this case. He was convicted of running a drug trafficking and protection racket during the 1990s. His crimes included distributing crack cocaine, supplying ammunition to gang members, and even revealing the identities of undercover police officers to his criminal associates. Federal authorities also stated that Mianowski had threatened to have lead prosecutor Brian Nettles killed. In 2003, Joseph Mianowski was sentenced to life in prison for his extensive criminal activities. Despite his request for a reduced sentence under the First Step Act, a law aimed at reforming criminal justice, his appeal was denied by U.S. District Judge Virginia Kendall. She cited the gravity of his crimes, the need for deterrence, and the harm he had inflicted on the community. Derek Stafford. Derek Stafford, a former Louisiana law enforcement officer, gained notoriety for his involvement in a tragic and deeply disturbing case. This case involved the shooting death of 6-year-old Jeremy Martis, a child with autism, and the critical injury of his father, Christopher Few, during a police chase in Marksville, Louisiana in November 2015. On November 3, 2015, Derek Stafford, along with another deputy city marshal named Norris Greenhouse Jr., was involved in a police pursuit that ended in tragedy. During the pursuit, Stafford and Greenhouse collectively fired 18 shots at a small SUV driven by Christopher Few, with his son Jeremy Martis inside the vehicle. Jeremy Martis was killed, and Christopher Few was critically wounded. Stafford and Greenhouse were arrested less than a week after the shooting incident. They faced charges related to the death of Jeremy Martis and the attempted manslaughter of Christopher Few. The incident drew significant public attention and outrage. Derek Stafford's trial unfolded with video evidence from a police officer's body camera, which showed that Christopher Few had his hands raised inside his vehicle when officers opened fire. Stafford, during his trial, maintained that he never knew the child was in the car and expressed remorse for the boy's death. However, he argued that he fired his weapon because he believed Few posed a threat. Despite Stafford's defense, he was convicted of manslaughter in the shooting death of Jeremy Martis. The jury found that his actions were not justified, given the circumstances of the case. Norris Greenhouse Jr. also faced murder charges in a separate trial, highlighting the gravity of the situation. On the day of sentencing, Derek Stafford received a 40-year prison term for manslaughter and an additional 15 years for attempted manslaughter. These sentences were to be served concurrently. The judge, in delivering the sentence, described the shooting as a senseless tragedy that should never have occurred. The case garnered controversy, with some, including Stafford's family, alleging that race played a role in the outcome. Stafford and Greenhouse are black, as was his son Jeremy. The defense accused investigators of rushing to judgment and questioned whether the case would have been handled differently if the officers had been white. Derek Stafford's case serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of excessive use of force by law enforcement officers and the need for accountability within the criminal justice system. It was a tragic incident that left a community in shock and resulted in the conviction of an officer who was once tasked with upholding the law. The stories of these officers paint a disturbing picture of a system in dire need of reform. When those who are meant to uphold justice become the perpetrators of injustice, the foundations of trust and accountability crumble. Their lack of remorse not only reflects a disturbing disconnect from the consequences of their actions, but also perpetuates a sense of impunity that undermines the very fabric of our society. If you love to see stories like this, click on the link shown on your screen to continue your exploration of the world of crime.